around. Mute everyone. Wonderful. Now you're ready.
Perfect.
It's zooming and you're
Thank
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you need anything, let us know or text me.
Okay.
We'll be in Grapevine.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, super fun.
What are y'all
Fun
doing?
stuff. It's a regional leadership meeting.
Cool.
They would just let us know about it on Monday. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to
Going
Grapevine.
to Grapevine, yeah. Party.
Thank you. Thank you. Can't wait to hear how it goes.
It'll go great.
It's going to be amazing. You're fantastic. I love you.
Thank you. Y'all be careful.
Will do.
Hi, Joe. Joe, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Gabriella, how many do we usually have?
I think there's supposed to be like 12 people in the group, 12 to 16.
Okay. Does everybody usually come to the class, or how many? Oh, there's Kathy. Okay.
I think most people have been. I know that I've not been in person, but because I've got my office here,
Uh-huh.
working from home. So
Okay, well, we'll just wait just a little bit longer.
thank you.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey, good
Hi,
morning.
good morning. How are you?
Great, how are you?
Doing all right.
Where's the one?
I don't think I've met you. What is your name?
I'm David.
David. How old are you?
Yeah,
I'm Megan.
nice to meet you. Want to show some on Fridays?
Nobody does?
Uh,
Getting ready to go out of town before the school starts back. David, there's breakfast in the back if you want anything.
Is it downstairs?
Just donuts and pizza. Well, let's get started and we'll just, can everybody on Zoom hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys. Okay. So today's make and receive offers. How is Ignite going so far for you guys? Are you liking it?
Very good.
Yeah? Have you been here for the whole time?
I have not.
No?
Started probably from the third session.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, good. I'm glad that y'all are here. Guys online, do you mind turning your cameras on so I can kind of see you guys? Because I don't know very many of y'all. Haven't gotten to meet you guys yet. Hi. How are y'all enjoying Ignite?
It's going pretty well. I've learned a lot, so I'm kind of
Yeah?
excited about it. Yeah.
Well, good. In this one, it's taking it from finding your buyers and your sellers to getting them in contract. How do you present an offer to a listing agent when you're representing the buyer? And how do you present the offer when you're the listing agent? So let's run through your 10-4. Have y'all done the homework from the last session on finding houses and showing houses? Did y'all bring anybody to call this morning
To which one?
to make your calls, like your lead gen?
Yeah, I did an open house yesterday. I had a few people.
Good, good. So for this one, I think we're gonna wait till the end to do our calls, for lead generation. Just because when you're going through, I want you to kind of make sure that you have your list together. Since I haven't met you guys, I'm Megan Madewell. I've been here for about 8 years. I have only been at Keller Williams, so I love Keller Williams. Their systems have worked very well for me, so I'm very excited that you guys are doing Ignite because it has come a long ways in the 8 years, so it's very helpful. On the 10-4, do y'all have any thing that has happened this week that has been great to you guys? Some accomplishments that y'all want to let everybody know and give some encouragement to everybody? How was your week?
So yesterday, actually, I got a call from a person who visited to my open house a week ago. So I've been following up with him 2-3 times. He never picked up the phone. He never responded to my texts. But he suddenly called me and he said he was considering 2 agents to work with. It's one agent was in Fort Worth, KW. The other was me. So he kind of told me, okay, why would I work with you? Like he told me, like, sell yourself. So I didn't get pushy. I just said, yeah, I'm gonna encourage you to talk to her to see if you feel more comfortable working with. Yeah, I told him we provide a certain services that help our buyers to win the offers. And yeah, I kind of tried to push him towards me, but in a non-pushy way. And yeah, he actually started asking about cash backs. So he tried to get some discount working with me. I didn't know what to say. I said, yeah, everything is upon negotiation during buying process, even the cash back. But yeah, that's something we can talk about later if you decide to work with me.
Okay.
So do you have any idea like how to respond to these situations?
I do. So first I want to say you did a good job, and the coaching program that's coming up is going to do wonders for you to create that value proposition to where when someone asks you why should I work with you, it's just easy and you know exactly what to say. So that coaching program is going to be great for you. When have y'all run into this at all? Did y'all hear what David had to say about this week? Okay, we'll just have a class. When that happens, you did the right thing and just say, you know, everything's up for negotiation. I'd be happy to speak with you further about that. Why don't we meet in person so that you can get a good feel of how I do business and the value that I'm going to be able to bring to you as your agent. That way you're sitting in front of them and able to discuss that in person. Of course, it is always negotiable. When you're meeting with him in person, you're able to say, these are the things I'm able to do for you. And when winning this offer, the money, you're not going to be, the buyer's not out any of that commission, the seller pays that commission. So the benefit is the value that you're bringing with writing offer, getting them in homes before anybody else. Things like that.
Especially being new, they came to my open house and they felt like I'm pretty young. I think that they're trying to take it as an advantage during the commission negotiation. But yeah, I'm gonna try to set an appointment.
Yeah, that'd be good. Just give them a call and see if you can't get that appointment set with them so that you're in front of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have you had anything that, any other struggles that you've had, like where you went, oh crap, I don't know the answer to that this week?
So, for example, I had some instances when neighbor just walks in
Mhm.
and he says, I just own a house nearby, I'm curious about the pricing. Is there, I usually add them to my database and add them to the nurture, the neighborhood nurture. Is there any other way I can like follow up with them, go to check with them if they need any help with getting some information about the value of their house?
So typically those neighbors, the nosy neighbors that come in to see what type of house and how it compares to their house, they're keeping an eye on the market in their neighborhood for a reason. So either they are looking for someone else in their family or friends, someone to move to that area, or they're looking for themselves as far as selling their house. So the more questions you ask them while they're there, the better. Make sure that they sign into your open house, add them to the nurture plan, that's great. And then just follow up with them. If they're getting the nurture plan, they're getting it once a month. So until you talk to them and they're like, look, we're not going to do anything for 4 or 5 months, I would follow up with them probably every week. Just say, hey, you know, I met you at the open house. You were asking a lot of questions about pricings for that type of house. Is your house very similar to this? And did you notice any big differences? And what did you think about the price? So I can just back to those sellers.
So, do I need to try to schedule a
I would call them and come from that aspect and ask more questions. And then the conversation will organically grow into, well, if you're looking to sell your house, would you like me to sit down with you and show you other houses in the area that would be comparable to yours to see what you're looking at. Okay. Do you guys on Zoom, do y'all have any accomplishments for this week or any questions that y'all run into this week?
I have been in contact with a set of buyers and we're trying to get some insurance to take place so that they have the ability to get into the actual property itself, but it's got foundation issues, it's got roofing issues. So we're really pushing to have that seller use their insurance to fix the property first, so we can get into it and they get a good price for the property, things like that.
Perfect.
That's
So
what-
next week is also negotiations on Monday. So that will definitely help you with that aspect of the repairs.
Perfect.
Insurance will usually cover roof. Some
Mhm.
insurance cover foundation, but not all of them.
So we have flood insurance, so it should cover the foundation.
Perfect, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, I had some of y'all say y'all didn't really have anything for this week.
Oh, I've got a seller.
Oh, yay, good job. Good
Yeah,
job. Where did you
thank
find
you.
that?
I'm like, All right, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's go into, let's just jump into it. So we're moving from finding your business and dealing with how to build your business into actually doing the work, doing the business part of it. So let's go through what happens during the offer process and what that process is. Maybe I can. Okay, so do y'all have your books? We're gonna do lead gen at the end. So, hey, so the offer process, it's not always you make an offer, they accept it, you move into contract. It's not, they just reject it. Sometimes it can be a loop. You go back and forth several times. So the buyer makes an offer, the seller responds in one of three ways. They either counter your offer. It could be as small as the number of days in your option period, or it could be several different aspects of the offer that you make. They could accept your offer or they could reject it. So you see that if the seller counters your offer, you're going to keep going back into a loop until either you come into an agreement or y'all agree that y'all can't come to an agreement. When a seller rejects an offer, that's not always just the end of the road. The more questions that you ask, the better. So if a seller rejects the offer, some of the questions that you could ask is there anything in what point in this offer is, did the seller just flat out not consider? Is there anything else that we can change? In this market, that's kind of hard just because everything has really been highest and best. So you really have to go in with your highest and best and make sure that your buyer knows that. So one of the worst feelings is coming back to your buyer and saying, oh, they went with another offer, and them going, oh, well, I would have gone a little bit higher, or I would have been willing to pay for this or that, and not really giving them the full shot. Okay, so whenever your buyers, we're going to do buyers first and representing the buyer. So we're going to go through what your buyer has found the property that they want to make an offer on. What are the steps that you take? What do y'all think is the first step that you take before you write the offer?
Check the price, how much he's going to pay.
So do some research on the property. Yeah. So some of the things that you have a checklist in your binder to prepare the offer. So some of the things that you're going to research, obviously, you're going to have the MLS printout so that you have all of the information. Are y'all seeing a lot of the listings already have seller's disclosures and surveys posted and everything? That used to not be the case. They used to not have them all the time. I'm seeing more and more seller's disclosures being posted. Go ahead and pull those up, because you don't want to get to a property or the buyer fall in love with a property and then go, oh, well, there's foundation issues, or there's known termites and things like that. And okay, and it just be a deal breaker for the buyer right off the bat. So we want to take care of as much as we can up front. Go ahead and make sure that your buyer has a pre-approval letter. You need to check the tax records, make sure that the sellers on the tax roll is the same as the sellers that the listing agent has. Sometimes, that's whenever we run into the issues of if it's an inheritance or if it's an estate sale. So those are things that we need to check up front so that when you write the offer, your offer is complete and your offer is considered a little bit more finished if you didn't have those information. So what are some of the questions that you would ask the listing agent when you call the listing agent?
Does this house have any issues, like any foundation,
Okay.
any major issues? Or did you get any other offers?
Okay. Any other offers? Are there any known issues that you can see? Do you guys on Zoom have any questions that you like to ask?
No.
So are y'all just calling the listing agents and saying when our offers due, and are y'all digging a little bit deeper, seeing why is the seller moving? Do they need a lease back? Do they have a current survey? If they don't, is the buyer, do you expect the buyer to pay for that? I always ask and make sure that I know the timelines, if there's any other offers. I have noticed that listing agents are getting less and less chatty. So a lot of yes and no answers lately. So don't take that personal. They're representing their seller just like you're representing your buyer. And your job is to get as much information as possible to share with your buyer.
So if there are multiple offers on the else, is there a like good language to use to understand if your offer has a chance to win or not?
So think about the type of offer that you're going to be writing with for your buyer. If I have a buyer that I know has a contingency to sell another house or is using any kind of financing other than conventional, or has another need, then I always ask that, because a lot of times what we're running into right now is in multiple offer situations. Will this seller even consider a contingency? How many other offers do you have at this point? If we're looking at making this type of offer, is that something that the buyer or the seller would consider at that point? Sometimes you'll get agents that will tell you information. Ethically, they can't tell you very much. You can't just go in there and ask, hey, what sales price do I need to put this at? Because that's not they wouldn't be doing justice to their client, just like you wouldn't be doing justice to your client if you were representing the seller. So once we get all of that information gathered, we sit down with our buyers and we talk about what they are comfortable with. So we sit down and go through each point of the offer and we write the offer up. So what are some of the issues that you have run into when writing an offer? David, have you written an offer? Okay. Guys on Zoom, what kind of issues are y'all running into when you're writing these offers for multiple offers?
Well, price-wise, whether or not we need to allow ourselves to go above and beyond the price that's been provided for asking price. With the survey, do they have the survey? Who's paying for the survey? As you said, title. Who's paying for title? Are we going to jump that gun and say, well, because it's a seller's market, are we going to allow ourselves to have the property title, which is usually a 1% of the property price, paid for the buyers just to get our foot in the door? Are we going to negotiate that out later on and say, hey, well, you've already accepted, we're an option, would you be willing to pay for title at this time? What else? Let's see. Is there an HOA? Would we be willing to pay for the full amount of the HOA pricing, so you're not even having to worry about that? What kind of property, like personal property items, are you going to be keeping from the house? Are you taking all the curtains? Was it in the request? What is it that you're wanting when we're negotiating? And I know that that's part of the negotiation, and that'll be more of next week, but it's really, really, really important that we have.
Well, and it is part of negotiation, but it is also part of your initial offer, because we're in such a market where you have to come in so hard in order to, like you said, get your foot in the door. But
Right.
How hard do we go in? It's the good thing about this market is it's teaching us to really, really dig in and get to know our buyers and their situation, and make sure that we're over communicating things to our buyers so that they absolutely know what to expect. So when we're talking about, okay, the sales price, we have to have sometimes it's a hard conversation, I know. Look, you're pre-approved for 400. How much cash do we have? You're expecting to put down 20%. We need to look at reallocating that amount of 20%, and if you're comfortable with a higher payment, to use that 20% for cash if it's needed on a home and you feel comfortable doing that. I always want to explain to my clients that these are some of the suggestions that I have, but I am always going to make sure that you're comfortable with whatever it is. So I don't want you to think that this is how it has to be in order to get the home, because ultimately it's your job to protect them. And if they're not comfortable, then that's going to run into some issues. So is your buyer in the position to have the extra cash to pay the 1% for the title policy? It's just really digging into what your buyer needs and what they're capable of doing. And in talking with them about that, you also need to be in good communication with the lender. Make sure that you understand what the limits are. You know, they're telling me that they do whatever it takes to get the house and pay for title, pay for, you know, survey, pay for their own home warranty, everything like this. I need to make sure that they're in that position to do that, because it will change if they're having to put down 30 extra grand on a house instead of putting money down on their down payment. Will that payment be too high and them not get approved? So there's things that we have to do a little bit more research up front in order to make sure that we're presenting that offer appropriately and making sure that we don't get anybody in the bind later on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So when we're writing an offer, like you said, we want to go through price. We want to check the seller's disclosure, make sure there's no items in there that the buyer would be concerned about. The conveyances, like you said, the drapes. I work a lot out in the country, so minerals are a big thing where I am. Are they wanting to exclude minerals? And so you have to educate the buyer heavily on that, because that is a big item. Drapes, light fixtures, things like that. Sometimes I've seen those things. So then we also want to talk about earnest money. Have y'all seen a higher earnest money lately in these offers?
Yes.
Yeah. So typically we would say that earnest money would be about 1% of the sales price traditionally. We have been seeing higher earnest money. And everybody knows what earnest money is? Okay, good. And so we've seen a little bit higher earnest money, putting a little bit more skin in the game, along with option periods. What are some of the trends that you've seen with option periods?
Option periods are cutting down the time tremendously. Instead of the normal like 7 to 10 days, it's like 3. And they're actually waiving the option period, saying we're not backing out of this house at all. We don't want to have inspections. I mean, I've seen some crazy things so far.
Yes. So option periods, I've seen a lot of people waiving them. I see more of this when it's an investor. They go through the house a little bit harder. Honestly, I'm under the belief, and I mean, it puts us at a big liability suggesting not to have an inspection. So you want to make sure that the buyer understands the position that they'll be put in if they don't do an inspection. And there is that form where they decide not to have an inspection, make sure that they get that signed if that's the route that they're going to go. A lot of the inspectors are understanding that we have to get these inspections done quickly when there's 3 days to do it. On your checklist of writing the offer, there's a point of the time for seller acceptance. I have noticed that this has really not been an issue. A lot of buyers, agents are put that in there, are trying to get their offer accepted before they go into multiple offers. Sometimes I see this a lot with like Opendoor and things like that. But the pattern I've noticed is that the sellers are really setting the timeline for making their Is that something y'all can agree with?
Yeah.
So financing terms, we've kind of spoken about. We really have to get familiar with the buyer's financial situation and get in contact with their lender. We don't want to wait until after we get into contract to talk to that lender. We're talking with that lender from day one. Okay. So closing date, closing time. We want to make sure that the buyer has sufficient time, the lender has sufficient time to close the loan, and the buyer has possibly the flexibility of giving a lease back after closing. I know that's been an important subject with the offers now.
What's a lease?
A lease back is where the buyer and seller close on the property, and the buyer is giving the seller a certain number of days or weeks to continue to lease back to the sellers.
Are they still gonna pay rent?
So yes, there is in that addendum, they go through how much the sellers are going to pay the buyers per day, the types of pets that are allowed there, if they stay longer, the holdover amount per day. And typically, I mean, I'm just one agent, so if y'all are seeing something different, let me know. I'm seeing a lot of free lease backs where the seller is giving a $250 or $500 deposit, but not paying a daily rate. And so, you know, the buyer has to give that deposit back within 30 days after the lease back is up. Okay, so, and then the last point in writing your offer is a cover letter. How many of y'all do cover letters?
I do, because
Do-
of professionalism.
Yes. So I'm in the belief that a cover letter, you can do this in the body of the email, goes through the points of the offer. It makes sure that the listing agent is familiar with the offer, and it makes sure that it kind of humanizes the buyers for them. So in that, you go through the points and you say, you know, the sales price, we're putting up this. The great part about this is it's over asking price. There are no contingencies for the sale of another property, which puts my buyer in a great light. Those types of things. Make sure you include the lender's pre-approval letter, their contact information, and one of a really good point that some lenders will do is they will reach out to the listing agent, introduce themselves, and ask if they have any questions to go ahead and give them a call. Do y'all have any questions about writing an offer, like the process of preparing to write an offer, setting down and writing an offer? I'm sorry, guys, I have a packet. I know y'all aren't here, but I have a packet that includes a blank offer, a written offer, and then the second part will be for the sellers. So we'll go through, the second part of the class will be going through how do you present an offer as a listing agent. So right now we're on the buyer's agent, and how to prepare an offer, write an offer. So what are some of the issues that you're running into when writing, like actually writing an offer? Guys on Zoom, do y'all have any issues that y'all have run into besides just trying to figure out what to, I have clients priced out too quickly. Yep.
I've got a question. Gabby here. So with providing offers over to your seller, wouldn't you want them to be 100% provided with all of the documentation, making sure that you provide lowest price up to highest price up to lowest price, first come, first serve kind of thing, so that the seller has all of the documentation and you talk them through each of the items that are provided, kind of giving them a list as well, like just create a Word document with all of the options saying, hey, okay, with this offer, you're being provided this, and this, instead of just providing them the contract saying, hey, just read through this.
Yes, and that's covered in the sellers portion of the class. So I actually, if you will y'all put your emails in the chat, and I can send you some resources that I use that we'll go over through in our sellers portion. I have a spreadsheet that's used for multiple offers so that you can see the offers all next to each other and you can compare them that way. It's also wise to do like net sheets for each offer and then have a copy of the offer that you send to the sellers as well. So that the seller has all of the documentation. You're recapping it with the spreadsheet and then you have a net sheet to show them for each offer. It's up to you whether you send these offers to them and this information to them all at once, or if you send it to them as they come in. So it's really up to you. It's also up to have that conversation with your seller and say, hey, do you want me to just inform you one time of everything that's come in, or are you wanting to see these as they come in so that you can kind of have some background to go through when we do sit down and talk about the multiple offers to accept one. So we'll go through that.
Okay,
Anybody else? Do you have any questions?
No, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So what are some of the objections that you're running into when you're sitting down with your buyer to write an offer? In the ideal world, the buyer's like, hey, what do I do? And they follow your lead and you help them, guide them through, but what if you have a buyer that upfront wants to make repairs in their offer or wants to write an offer lower, and you're in the multiple offer situation? What do you see as being your problems with your buyers at this point? Stubbornness. Oh, I can't hear you, Gabby.
Sorry, them backing out or not having proper finances up front.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we be able to read through them and say, okay, I need to make sure that this happens, or like, how would you go about that?
So meaning that making sure that they're properly financed or have the cash on hand, is that what you're asking?
Right.
Okay. So you have to have that hard conversation with them, and then you just check your facts. Go to their lender and say, hey, this is what I'm being told. Is that correct? Can I, advise them to do this? Or if I'm looking at writing an offer with all of these fees being paid for by the buyer, is that compatible with what you're seeing? And it's really, I hate those conversations too, but you have to have them, and you'll get, I think you'll be able to represent the buyer's offer a whole lot better if you know all of those, and just say, I'm really sorry. I know that some of these questions may be intrusive, but in order for me to properly represent your offer, I need to make sure that I'm fully aware of the situation so that I can really go to bat for this offer, especially in multiple offer situations.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't work with anybody who's not been pre-qualified, and I don't start showing them houses until I've spoken to their lender.
Yeah, very wise. Okay, so I'm wondering if my pages are the same as yours, but on page 17, you have some buyer objections.
We do that.
You do not?
Yeah, buyer offer objections.
Yep.
Your turn, buyer offer objections.
Yep.
Script.
Page 17.
Yes, 17. So these are just two of the objections that we could run into. some of the other objections that I have been running into is I want to wait to make an offer. I want to see, I want to wait till the last minute, see what all's come in. I've also run into buyers really looking up, it's really setting the expectation, but I've run into some buyers that want to look over their price range to write an offer for lower, or seeing how long the house has been on the market. So really setting the expectation for your buyer and educating them about what the market is will alleviate some of the problems that or the objections that your buyers are coming to you with. So in that first buyer's consultation, really kind of make sure that they understand the market right now. Okay. It's not looking for a house at 350 to buy it at 330 at this point.
It's looking for a house at 300 to buy it at 350.
Yeah, it's looking at a house for 300 to buy it at 350. So helping them understand that. And sometimes you'll run into a buyer that they have to learn it on their own. They have to lose a couple of offers in order to get that in their head. Like you said, sometimes they're stubborn. So, okay. Do y'all have any, so right now we're going to be shifting into the sellers, representing the sellers, but as the buyer, do you have any questions? Did I give you a packet?
Yes.
Any questions about the first thing in your packet is just a blank offer, a blank contract. Do you have any questions over the blank contract?
This is kind of off topic, but kind of not. The title policy, because I've seen some people do like buyer pays title to make their offer, offer more attractive. How much on average is title policy? Do you know, like
It's usually about 1%.
1% of the house? Okay.
And to get that to show, I usually, there's a net sheet that you can do just to check the numbers. So if someone's asking you, how much exactly would that title policy be? Just go to your net sheet,
Okay.
and put it in there that the seller would pay title policy, and it will auto populate the cost of that because
Okay.
it's set by the state. So
Okay, nice.
yeah.
And then for HOA dues, or HOA, the fees, the what's it called? There's like,
Resale certificate.
I think, there's like a fee that you have to pay that's like on the offer.
Yes.
Do you usually have the seller pay that, the buyer pay that, or do you split it?
Traditionally it was split, or it was heavy on the seller's side. Right now that's a negotiating term that you can do. Now, you don't want to just put a number in there. You want to speak with the listing agent and say, if it's in an HOA, and say, do you know what the cost of transfer for the HOA is, so that I can put an educated number into that addendum.
And if they don't have a number whenever you're writing the offer, like right now, I guess you don't really want to wait too long to write that offer. So what would you do in that case where you're not really sure what to put in that spot?
Over the years, just in my experience, I usually put about 250.
Okay.
If it's in a higher, you look and see how much the dues are per year, and kind of take an educated guess off of that. Now, sometimes over the years, you can work in a subdivision that you worked in before, and you kind of can see a pattern. You could call a title company and say, hey, in this addition, what's typical?
Okay.
Okay. You're welcome. How about you, David? Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, so are y'all ready to go to the sellers, or you want to take a little break?
I'm sorry. I'm ready to go to the sellers as long as nobody needs.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So representing the sellers, the more research that you do and the more information that you give out up front as the listing agent, the easier time you're going to have during the whole course of this. be prepared for when you list a property to get phone calls, to get text messages, and to have that conversation up front with the seller. Hey, if we get multiple offers, what do you want the plan to be? So that you're not caught off guard when you receive that first phone call and they're like, when are y'all reviewing offers? Even though you don't have offers, that's still going to be a question. So go ahead and have that conversation with the seller and say, what does your schedule look like this weekend or through this week, so that we can go ahead and set a time so that if we are put in that position, we already have a plan in place. Okay. Make sure that you have the appropriate schedule for your seller in showings, so that the seller knows what to expect. The seller knows, or you know, hey, the seller doesn't want showings during this time and this time. Okay. Once you get an offer in, one of the best things to do is go ahead and receive the offer, reply to that email and say, I've received this, thank you for your offer. We'll review offers at this day. Or if you don't have that set up, just say received, I appreciate your offer, I'll let you know. So you gather that contract, you make sure that you put it all in one place. Depending on what your seller wants, you can send them that offer, just the offer itself, so they can go through it. So they can't ever say, well, you just gave me a recap. You just gave me an Excel sheet going through the offer. I didn't actually know this piece of information about it. Go ahead and send them the whole contract so that they have that for their reference. My practice is to go ahead and send them offers as they come in, and then say, this is just for your information, so that you can kind of know what's going on and what I'm receiving. And then we'll meet on this day and go through everything. So they're receiving a copy of each contract. Gather as much information as you can from the buyer. Sometimes you have time to do this and sometimes you don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. When a buyer's agent presents you with a cover letter, that makes the listing agent's job so much easier. And they're more prepared for questions like, are you sure that the buyer can cover the cost of this over list price? What happens if it doesn't appraise? If all of that information is already in there, along with their pre-qualification letter, everything like that, there's going to be less holes to fill in for the listing agent. So that's another point in the buyer's agent sending a cover letter.
And I probably missed the cover letter part, but what do you usually put on the cover letter?
So in the cover letter, you just go through the offer with the listing agent. So I put mine in just the body of the email when I send the offer over.
Okay.
And I just say, hey, you know, this buyer's really excited for this house. We appreciate you letting us look at it. The buyer can, with this house, can extend the family. And, you know, they're looking, the pool is great, will be great fun for their family, things like that. So I kind of humanize it a little bit so that they know kind of what my buyer's looking for. And then you just kind of recap.
Like main
the offer.
points.
Yeah,
Okay.
like they're offering
This
400,000, which is 40,000 over what, you know, whatever. They don't have any contingencies, and they're financing conventional through this lender. Their contact information is this, if you'd like to reach out, that kind of stuff. Okay. So one of the main ways that you can represent your buyer properly and more efficiently is establishing a good relationship with that listing agent. Just be professional, be courteous, level with them, and just say, hey, I know the market's hard right now. How can I make this easier? You know, establish a relationship with them where when you get into contract with them and you go into negotiations, it feels more of y'all are working on the same team to get your buyer a house and get your seller the house sold. Okay.
A question.
Mhm.
If you are a listing agent, do you need to request your buyer agent statement, bank statement of the offeree.
So, a good practice right now has been if a buyer is offering over list price, so, and they're waiving, a partial waiver of appraisal or a full waiver of appraisal. A good practice has been sending a, proof of funds letter from either their bank or their retirement fund, wherever they're pulling it from, stating that they have the cash to cover that in case they do have to use that. So you would send a pre-qual letter from the lender and in addition, a proof of funds if it's a large sum of cash that they're going over.
So would they need to have a letter for each offer, or is there like a way to get just like a blanket letter that they can have that's like, they have $30,000 in the bank?
So
And
with
then-
that, if you go to the bank and say, you know, can I have a proof of funds letter for this amount?
Okay.
They can provide you with that.
And is it okay, like, for example, if the house, if you're only needing like 10,000 over, or like the difference is really only like 10K, but they're having a letter that's 30,000, does that kind of like,
That's okay.
it's okay, okay.
And again, if they're putting a large sum down, so their cash to close is 40,000 and they're financing 100,000 or whatever the numbers are. If it doesn't appraise, they can reallocate some of that money that they're putting down for that.
Okay, so we can bring the down.
Bring the
percentage
cash down,
and then put it, okay.
if the buyer is comfortable with that, 'cause that will affect their payment. Their monthly payment. Okay. Any questions right now? So, in representing the seller, we've talked about gathering information from the buyer from the cover letter. There, on page 20, there's a checklist for reviewing the offer. So in your packet, I believe behind the blank one, there is one that is, it's the blank one, and then there's a spreadsheet, there's a net sheet, and then there's a offer that's filled out behind your net sheet. So you received this offer in, go through it. What are we gonna be checking? It's just an offer like this, it's behind the net sheet. So we received this offer in as the listing agent. We're gonna go through it to make sure that we understand the contract, make sure there's not any holes in it or any questions that we have, so that when we get in front of our sellers, they're not going, well, what about this? You know, so we have an answer for that. First thing you want to do, make sure that the seller's name is correct and that all of the sellers are listed on there. Make sure that the address is correct. Look at the price and make sure that something doesn't look fishy. Sometimes agents, we get in a hurry and we make mistakes. And so if you see something that's a little out of whack, you see something that, you know, 150,000 over on a $200,000 house, there's something someone may have typed something in wrong. Call that agent and say, hey, I just want to make sure and check that this is what you intended to do. Did the buyer's agent put a time of acceptance restriction on there? Make sure there's a pre-qualification or pre-approval letter. Go through the financing terms, make sure that those are all correct. Check and see if there's an appraisal waiver if it's above or at list price. So something that will help you go through this offer is a spreadsheet. So you're going to send the offer over to the sellers. You're going to have the offer in front of you and you're going to make a spreadsheet. So in front of the net sheet is your spreadsheet. Yeah, in front of that.
Oh, this one.
It's going to look like this. So put the property address at the top and you're basically going to go through the offer and move it to this spreadsheet. So that when you sit down with your seller, you have the offer, any kind of cover letter or letter from the buyer, their pre-qualification letter, and you're gonna have a net sheet and the spreadsheet. So see, on the spreadsheet, we received 5 offers on 1 Main Street. The benefit of doing it this way is everything's right next to each other. So you can compare. You can say, oh, well, I only want to do cash offers. So you cross out the other ones. If you look at the 2 cash offers, you can see them right next to each other. Or you can say, I don't want to do anything below. So the seller kind of has, it's easier to go through instead of sitting down with just each offer and going through it that way.
And this is everything you.
It is.
The estimated net dollar, how did you get that?
So that comes from the net sheet. So on the net sheet, which is the page behind it, you can get those a lot of times from title companies. I've just always used the one for free of title. I know that Title Resources has one as well. Whatever title company you're comfortable using, ask them if they have an estimated net sheet that you can use for your sellers or your buyers. Okay, so whenever you go through an offer, I always go through the offer, put it in the spreadsheet, then you turn around and you put it in a net sheet. A lot of these are going to be auto-populated, so the fees are already going to be in there for that title company. And then up at the top, you just put in the negotiated terms. So sales price, the close date will estimate the prorated taxes down in the fields, the estimated unexempted taxes, and then is the seller paying for title policy in that offer, or is the buyer? So yes or no on that. And then the real estate commission. So you go through on the net sheet, you go through each item, and there's negotiated items in there. So you'll see on the first net sheet that the title policy is selected as yes, the seller is going to pay for the title policy. The title policy is $21.38 on the net sheet. Then you go down. The escrow fee for that offer is $1,000 because it was through Open Door. It was through their title policy. So you have to make sure that if, let's say, Open Door makes it, there's an addendum for that offer as well. So like Open Door attaches, I think Redfin does too, they attach like an addendum to the contract. Read through that and see what that changes. So that particular title company, the fee was $1,000 versus if you look on another spreadsheet, the escrow fee is $450.
So the open door should be works directly with the sellers, right?
They can, yes, or they can purchase homes that are listed. Yeah.
Open Door, is that kind of like Walmart?
So, do you understand kind of the net sheet versus all the documents that you need to have representing to the sellers? The net sheet, the spreadsheet, the offer, any cover letters or pre-approval letters. Group them together so that you can make sure that you go through each one of them. You do not want a seller to come back and say, oh, I didn't know this. I would have selected this offer had I known that. Okay, so you over communicate.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the title company, does it make any difference for the seller which type of company the buyer is going with?
It depends. So typically in this area, the escrow fee, the title policy fee, or the title fee that they charge is about the same. It depends a little bit that you get with a title company. Sometimes you want to use a certain title company if you've already opened title at that title company. So if you have any questions about HOA documents or any restrictions, if there's any restrictions on the property or anything, you want to go ahead and get with the title company to go ahead and open. So then you can put in your MLS, title's already open at this title company. So it makes it a little bit easier. Makes the process go a little bit quicker. I personally, I never determine a contract on the title company that we're using. If you think about it, if there's an issue, the buyer is going to be the one dealing with the title company. So if they are adamant about a specific title company.
Whenever you present your offers, do you usually bring them as like copies and like staple them together? Do you send them as separate emails? Or,
So
like,
in the
files?
emails, I receive an offer and I go ahead and I forward it to my client.
Okay.
So they have it. I usually bring my spreadsheet, a net sheet for each offer. And depending on how many offers there are, if there's, like this one is 5 offers, I'll bring the top 2 so that we can go through the contract as far as when you look at this, there's timelines that you gotta follow. You got to explain some of these things to the seller. So having a contract in front of you, you'll be able to do that. If there's 16 offers, no, I'm not gonna put them all out.
Right.
No, I'll just bring my spreadsheet, the net sheet, and any pre-qual letters and letters that need to be shared. Okay. Y'all have any questions on Zoom so far? I still see the waiver filled out wrong.
Not so far. Sorry.
Oh, ma'am.
I think Kathy had I still see the waiver filled out wrong. I received an offer where it had partial waiver and 10,000 put in the amount. Yes. Contract class. We all need to go to a contract class. These addendums change often. And we need to make sure that we understand them, especially when presenting them as a listing agent and writing them as buyer's agent. If you were to do that and put $10,000 in that waiver, you're not representing your buyer correctly. Because if you explain it to the seller in that way, they're not going to accept it. But as a listing agent, you probably know what they're trying to say, but it's not the way it was. Okay.
Have you ever seen a partial waiver being used under list price? So like say the house is listed at 280 and your clients want to put in an offer at 300,000, but they want to put their partial waiver at 270. Is that something that you can do, or do you have to set the partial waiver at the 280?
No, you can do it that way.
Okay.
That's just saying that they would have the cash to cover between.
The
If
270,
yeah.
200.
So, that's part of negotiation on Monday. So ask that question to Tori on Monday, but you can put that in there. It's that the list price is not a set price.
Okay.
So even if you're offering, the question was, even if you're offering above list price, can you set the appraisal waiver price below list price? You can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from Zoom people? Not so far. Okay, I have all of y'all's emails, so I can send y'all all of this information too on like the spreadsheets and net sheets. So if y'all want them electronically, just leave me your email before we leave.
So
That too. So, yeah.
I do have a question. If you are doing like, say it was like 5,000 over and you don't do the appraisal waiver, is that just kind of a bad look and it's probably not going to get accepted?
So what you're saying whenever you don't include that appraisal waiver is that it has to appraise for sales price.
Right.
So the way that a listing agent's going to present that is they're offering $5,000 above list price, but if it doesn't appraise, what is our plan? Are you willing to come down to what it appraises for?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I can't say that in every situation you're going to include the appraisal waiver. It's up to your buyer. So that's a conversation that you have to have with them. Look, this is how your offer is going to be presented. Are you comfortable with that? Or do you want to include a waiver that it has to appraise at least this much? Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As a listing agent, do you think it is attractive? I know that's probably again another question for the negotiation class tomorrow, but do you think it's attractive when you see maybe an offer that's maybe not a whole bunch higher, but has that waiver set lower than list?
So
Or-
it is subjected to the property and the seller. I do explain it very in depth. That's kind of what you need to do. But if you set that expectation with your seller and say, hey, these are the comps, go through the comps with them and say, it's very likely that your house is gonna appraise for this, but they're offering 20 above. Are you comfortable with the appraisal being down here, which will most likely be, and you would get this sales price over here because they're guaranteed, as long as it appraised for this, they're guaranteeing this.
Yeah.
So explaining what could happen and going through worst case scenario and best case scenario and most likely to happen with your seller is going to alleviate a lot of the questions when you get down to it. You're welcome.
When the appraisers appraise the house, are they also checking the active houses nearby to run the comps or only sold?
It depends on how many comps that they have. So sometimes they'll look at the pending. They don't put as much weight on the pending as they do the sold ones. But it just depends on what is in the area and what they can use. Sometimes when you have a house that doesn't have a whole lot of comps, definitely have, as the listing agent, definitely have your comps pulled up and have them prepared. A lot of appraisers are not talking to agents right now. In my experience, have y'all experienced something else on Zoom? Have y'all been talking to the appraisers?
I've seen a lot of properties actually appraising higher than what they had been normally for
Yes,
tax.
they're catching up. Yeah, the appraised values are catching up to
Yeah.
the trends right now. Used to, a couple of years ago, houses weren't appraising for what they were selling for. So we were having to kind of get with the appraiser and show them, hey, this is what we're looking at. These are the offers that we received. So we were in more contact with the appraisers 2, 3, 4 years ago. Now they're just setting appointments and seeing when they can go. Now, if it's a very unique property, I deal a lot with properties out in the country. So sometimes we can't, it's harder to find comps. And so a lot of times we do go through with the appraiser and say, hey, these are some of the improvements that they've made to the property. These are some of the comps that I found. You may be able to say, sometimes the appraiser finds different comps or better comps. But they'll ask you questions if they have them. Has anybody dealt with properties that were not on the market for your buyers or sellers?
Yeah,
No.
Not on the MLS.
So
Just
this year
FSBOs.
this year has been more FSBOs, more houses that where a seller's like, well, I'm thinking about selling, and you have a buyer come off the market and then y'all have to work that out. So sometimes when a house is not listed on the MLS, that's whenever you'll talk to the appraiser more so than if it was. So they'll have a little bit more questions about the condition of the property and how it compares and things like that. Okay. Any questions online? Sorry, I know it's a lot of information. Okay. Why don't we take like a 15-minute break? It's 10:10. So yeah, let's take about 15 minutes. And if y'all have any questions, just write them down and we'll go through them. This is more of like a Q&A kind of class, checklist kind of class. So definitely when you're writing the first couple of offers and presenting the first couple of offers, get with someone that is mentoring you or coaching you, or one of us on the ALC. One of the brokers, we're happy to go through the contracts with you, help you write them, help you present them, and make sure that a lot of people learn by doing. So just kind of help walk you through the process. So if you don't have anybody that is mentoring you or coaching you, I'm happy to help you find someone to do that. I'm happy to do that for you. So I'll leave my information up on the whiteboard so that if y'all need my phone number, need my contact, y'all can call me. Okay. Okay. 15 minutes. Guys on Zoom, we're going to take a 15-minute break.
Here's my email address.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I really like that spreadsheet.
Perfect. Good. Good. It's coming very, very
Yeah.
handy. Thank you. Okay, are y'all back on Zoom? Hi, Joe. I'm gonna write all these emails down real fast so that I don't lose them. Okay, guys. So in reviewing an offer with your client when you are the listing agent, what are some of the things that you're running into with your seller? What are the main questions that they're asking? Is it just the appraisal addendum that we've been talking about? Is it obviously it's or the sales price that they're offering? What are some of the issues that you're running into as the listing agent in making sure that your seller is comfortable moving forward with one offer over the other? You guys on Zoom have anything? Okay. So this class going pretty quickly. When we present offers on page 22, there's some scripts in there on how to present that to your sellers. What if the seller, or what if the offer comes in lower than you expected it to? How do you want you have to keep that conversation positive. You have to make sure that even a low offer is a good thing. You can still negotiate, you can still make a counter offer. Sometimes we have to remind our seller and our buyer, we need to remove the emotion behind it, especially in the middle of negotiations. And Tori will go through that more on Monday. But when looking at these offers, sometimes people get offended, people get emotional, people get, depending on the situation, some people get sad. Sometimes you're in a different situation where there's a divorce, they're moving for health reasons or things like that. And it's a higher emotional move. So what happens whenever you're presenting these offers and you get stuck? They don't want to take any of them, or all of them are really good offers and they just don't want to make a decision. How do you keep that communication open, and how do you overcome some of the seller's objections whenever you're presenting offers? Have y'all had any objections in particular? No. Online? Zoom?
Honestly, I've never presented an offer, so I'm kind of excited to see what kind of troubles have been provided so that I know how to negotiate out of that.
Perfect. So just like when you're writing an offer and you've never written an offer before, grab somebody that's been here, grab your coach or your mentor or one of us on the ALC. Let us sit down with you and go through it with you and help you write that. Let us help you present that to the listing agent so that, you know, kind of like whenever you have a listing, you have to sell it to other agents and other buyers. That's kind of what you have to do with your offer. You have to sell it to the sellers, but then you also have to sell it to the listing agent, because the listing agent is the one that's going to be presenting your offer. So when you are the listing agent presenting the offer, there are some things that do come up. So when it's your first time, see if someone will go with you. And just say, you know, I'm still learning, and I'd love to just have someone there to answer any questions that you may have that I don't know the answer to. That will also help with your relationship with the sellers, because they see that you want to make the best decision for them, and that you want to you're taking your job as important as they are. So definitely, when you present your first set of offers on your listing, please take somebody with you, or talk to someone beforehand if you don't want to take them with you. Okay. Do you have any questions, David?
What's an ALC?
And the ALC is the Agent Leadership Committee. So here at Keller Williams, there's a committee of agents that help make decisions for the office. So it's a different number of agents each year, but they are agents within the top 20% of our office, and they help make decisions for the office. So they are doing a lot of business. They are doing mentoring if for new agents, and usually it's the teachers of this class and some other classes that we offer.
LLC, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I think Dolores did that
Yeah,
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah. Okay, so we were talking about presenting the offer, and sometimes we have objections from the sellers. It's very, I was going through, sometimes we get different scenarios, it's not just someone selling their house. A lot of times there's motivation behind selling their house. They're getting a divorce, they're upgrading to a new house, somebody's having a baby, or their in-laws are moving in with them. There's usually something that is a stressor at some point. So the level head that you keep and even in presenting an offer that's not that great. The offer process is a loop. Just because you get an offer, a low offer, doesn't mean that can't turn into a good offer.
and do you usually, if a client gets an offer and it's a lower offer, do you usually tell them, let's give it a week and see if we get any more? Do you just say like, give it a few days, or how do you usually go about?
Depending on the situation, I usually suggest them making a counter offer,
Okay,
even if it's at list price. I usually ask them to at least give a counter offer, unless they are just completely against it. Okay. And continue to show it, continue to take offers, because you could be in the middle of a counter offer situation with one buyer and receive 2-3 other offers at the same time. Then you call for highest and best, even if you are negotiating with that other buyer. Okay.
and do you usually continue showing the house after, like, once it's gone under contract? Do you usually continue showing it and ask for backup offers, or?
I do. It depends on the seller if they're willing to do that. Once we go through that spreadsheet and we accept one of the offers, I always ask them, do you want to offer a backup position to any of these other offers? Or if they don't, and they understand what a backup offer is, go ahead and just say, through the option period, if any showings are requested, please continue to show the property. Because if something were to happen, we can still receive other offers from new buyers, and we could go back to these other buyers that have already made offers. So,
Big question.
Mhm.
If the counter offer is accepted, aren't you obligated to go with that offer?
if it's accepted, yes, you are. If you're in negotiations with them, like you're going back and forth and the counter offer hasn't been accepted or anything like that, and you receive offers in at the same time, you have a duty to present all of the offers to your seller. So you go back to every agent that's put in an offer and say, look, now we're in multiple offers and we need your highest and best by this time. Okay. You got to give everybody the same opportunity. Okay. Any questions on Zoom?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so on page 22 and 23, there are some examples of objections from the sellers. We've kind of gone through all of them. It's so how do we present if our seller is making a counter offer to an offer that they received? How do we present that back to the buyer's agent? How has that traditionally worked? So what we're going to do is, obviously you want to put it in writing and send it back to them in the email. Don't give too much information away, because remember, anything that we gather from the buyer's agent, we share with our sellers. So if we give too much information out as the listing agent, they're taking that back to their buyers. So be very matter of fact and say, these are the points that the seller is countering you on. All the other aspects of the offer they accept, but these are the points in the contract that they would like to change.
So whenever you do that, would you send them back the offer, and then in the body of the email be like, this is that we want changed, and that would be a counteroffer? Do you have to change something in the contract or make a new contract? How would that work?
Now, the brokers may tell you something different. I always do counter offers in the email.
Okay.
And once we come to an agreement, then we do a clean contract.
Okay.
Okay. Just so we don't have a ton of marking out and things like that. And as a listing agent, you're not using your time to go through and write the offer that you're not familiar with from the buyers, and making sure that you don't accidentally change something in the mix.
So, sorry,
No,
but,
you're good.
so would the acceptance be whenever, say you have a counteroffer and then the buyer's agent is like, okay, we accept this, would that be considered the acceptance, or would it be not until that new contract is drafted and fully executed?
It has to be executed to be an executed contract.
Okay.
So verbally, you can accept it.
But it's not
Integrity,
enforceable
yeah, it's
until-
not enforceable until it's signed and in writing. Now, integrity wise, are you gonna stick with what you have agreed with? Because let's say in the middle of drafting up that contract, you receive another offer. You have to tell your seller that you've just received another offer, but you've got to explain to the seller, look, we've accepted this offer. They can make the choice to go back on their word, basically, or continue with what they've agreed to do. Most of the time, people make the right decision and go with what they've verbally agreed to. There have been instances, but it gets dicey.
And yeah, and as the agent, I mean, you're supposed to represent your client's decisions. And even like, I guess my question is, what's the best way to approach that situation where your name and also like who you are is also on the line, but you know, at the end of the day, you have to respect their decision. Like, how do you talk that through with the other agent and let them know, I wish I could, you know, like how does that?
So in regards to the person that put in the second offer after another offer was accepted, you tell them, we verbally accepted an offer, but I will present your offer because I have an obligation to do that. And I will let you know what the seller decides to do. Leave it at that. With the agent that you have verbally accepted, they verbally accepted the offer, have the conversation with your seller first.
Okay.
Then tell them that if you do scenarios with your seller and help them understand the situation, usually they'll make the decision that's best for them most of the time. Now, I've had some sellers, no, I want to go with this other offer. I've had some sellers, I'm going to stick with what I said, even though this one's more. Now, how do you, like you said, you're the one having to go back and say, they're going with a different offer. So what you need to do with the seller is just tell them and help them understand, if you were in this buyer's shoes, this is what's going to happen. So are you comfortable with making that same decision, knowing that, let's say you put an offer in on a house and it's verbally accepted, and then they come back and say, no, never mind, we're going with this offer.
Don't they,
Whoa, sorry.
don't they, aren't they liable to getting sued if they back out of a contract? Like, doesn't it go in default?
If they are in a contract, if it's verbally accepted, it's not enforceable until it's in writing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So what her question was is, let's say they're going back and forth with like counter offers and going through that loop of, hey, we'll do this and we'll do that. And then we finally get to a point where everybody's agreeable. Now we have to draft it up, get everybody to sign. Sometimes people don't sign very quickly. And you have everybody signed except one person out here. What if in that meantime you receive another offer? So you have to present that to the sellers. If you're the listing agent, you present it to the sellers have a decision to make. And it puts everybody in a really awkward position So going through the emotions of that and making sure that the seller's making the decision that's best for them, but then also, I mean, you have to, there's a question there. So
I like the way you put it though, with like, what would you do if you were in this
Yeah.
position? Exactly like that.
usually whenever you tell them, hey, look at it from their perspective, and are you comfortable with being the one that
That's it.
does that to them if that was being done to you? So that's just how I operate. And there's other people that may tell you differently, but that's, I think, the more ethical and the more the best thing to do to hold everybody's integrity. Any questions from Zoom?
I have no questions. Nope. Mm-mm.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so responding to offer on page 24, presenting the counter offer we've gone through. So once we're in contract, working that offer and making sure that everybody stays in alignment with each other, it comes down to making it a win-win for everybody. Yes, the seller doesn't want to pay for very much and the buyer doesn't want to pay for very much either. So when you get into that contract and you start negotiating, just make sure that you've started out on the right foot. Be kind, be courteous, make sure that, you know, if you're talking to a listing agent and they're like, hey, I'm on vacation, you know, like, it may take me just a minute to get back to you. Don't throw a fit. Just let them know, hey, you know, it's going to be a little bit. Or, hey, do you want me to write this up? You got an amendment to do. We've all come to an agreement. Do you want me to write this or do you want to write it? Don't just assume that another party is going to do it. Okay. Just sometimes negative things arise in the course of a contract. I think we've all been in that situation. Everybody on Zoom and everybody here, I think we've all been in that situation where something comes up and it's kind of like news you don't want to break to anybody. So it's kind of, you know, how do you approach that? How do you, some unexpected things come up in title, in negotiations with repairs, things like that. The cooler head that you have, the cooler head your client's gonna have. I am an over communicator in just my job. The other aspects of my life, I'm like, oh, y'all can figure it out, it's okay. But the more information that they have, the better educated decision that they can make, the less likely they are to come back and say, well, you didn't tell me this, whether they're a buyer or a seller. So get a system down where you get into contract, you spell everything out for them. You say, always after ending one phase, you say, this is what we're going to do next. And make sure that they have that expectation. They know what they're supposed to be doing at all times, so that you don't get down to the week before closing and we don't have home insurance or, you know, things like that. So anything that y'all are running into with getting buyers to write a contract, getting sellers to go on the market, go accept a contract. Are there any other questions that we haven't talked about?
Whenever you're explaining an offer, like that you're going to send like a listing agent to, when you're explaining the offer that you just wrote to your client, do you usually just call them on the phone and tell them, hey, this is the offer we're writing now? Do you have like a template, like an email template that you also send them, like, this is like the gist of the contract? How do you usually go about explaining the contract, but also, you know, kind of covering your bases to make sure that you have it right?
So who are you? Like,
if I'm representing the buyer,
you're representing a buyer and you're writing a contract.
for the
How
buyer,
do you, for the buyer, how do you explain the contract to who?
the buyer, like if I just wrote it out with everything they want, and I don't know, I plan to call them, do you follow it up with an email of this is like the main points, or do you have a template where you're like, here is what to know?
Yes.
What do you do?
So everything is different in this industry. Everybody does everything differently. Each transaction is very different. I have to say it depends on who my buyer is. If my buyer has sold and bought 7 different homes, they kind of know the process. So sometimes when you're over explaining to those people, they get tired and they don't want to listen. So you can kind of read it that way and say, I have clients that I know I can just be like, okay, here's the contract. And they go through the main points and okay, we're good. Now, I like to, if it's first time home buyers or buyers that haven't bought in a long time, I sit down with them and I go through the contract paragraph by paragraph. This is what this means. This is what this means. Now, somewhere in between, it depends. Can I get to them in time to explain it? So yes, when I send a contract out for signatures, there's also an email that goes out and says, these are the points that we've talked about for your offer. This is the paragraph that you'll find that in. And if you have any questions, let me know. We want to go through this in person or on the phone, please give me a call. But here are the main points of the contract. Okay. Make sure you save that email and put it somewhere so that you have a communication track. Does that answer that question? Yeah. Okay, what about online? We've gone quiet.
I don't have any questions. I think that's fairly well, I mean, not fairly well, that was very well explained so that if we have a situation, we can make sure that backup contracts and other contracts are provided, even if we have already verbally stated that, yes, we're going to go ahead and go with this one, but what if? It's like we can't steer it away and we definitely can't prevent them from seeing it. So good things. Awesome.
I'm always, you know, I'm always under the belief that I want to treat people the way that I want to be treated. And so having that situation, it's a hard situation to be in, especially if a seller's sitting there looking at, gosh, I could make an extra $10,000. How do I navigate that? And being up front, honestly, this job makes you have a lot of really hard conversations and you get kind of used to it. The more and more you do it, it becomes a little bit easier each time. But knowing your client really well helps with that. Okay, so back in our books on page 27, this goes through how we treat each other, our core beliefs, how we, kind of like we were talking about, how do you want to be treated? Looking at it from the outside, how do you want a contract explained to you if you were buying it? How do you want it explained to you if you were being presented with a sales contract on your house? Take that question and go through the whole process of from when you get into contract to when you close. Oh, it would be nice to know what I'm supposed to be doing right about now. Really, really easy tip to give you guys is, and if you have a coach, go through it with them on this. You have a mentor, you need someone to talk to, just give us a call. And if you use Google for your email, Google has Google Tasks. They also allow you to make templates. You're going to be sending a lot of the same emails. Hey, congratulations, you're in contract. Here's a copy of your contract. Here's all the important dates type thing. Save that as a template so that when you pull it up, I wonder if I can show you guys. When you pull it up, so you go to compose a new email. I'm going to write this to Bob, who just got into contract on a house. He's a buyer. So I'm gonna go to more options down here and go to templates. And buyer, congrats on the new contract. You click on that template and it brings up everything. And so you go through and you just go through the contract and put all that contract that pertains to that buyer, attach a copy of the contract for them and send it out. You can also go to task. Oh, no task right there. Go to task and put all the dates from that important dates email so that you can be reminded, hey, option ends on this day. I need to send out this email for, what's your next step email on the day after option ends, that kind of stuff. That will really help your clients, whether they're sellers or buyers, know what to expect next, what to, your inspection is scheduled for this day. Please remember to change your AC filter, these kind of things. It goes hand in hand with how you communicate during the offer process. Once you get into contract, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop there. So you get into contract and time is of the essence. You go right into it. You go into negotiating the repairs, the title work comes in, the survey, everything. So make sure that you stay on top of the communications. And on Monday, Tori will help y'all negotiate better.
And the templates that you created, was that just the time that you kind of started figuring out what it was that you told clients, or like, did you have a resource where you looked into be like, okay, this is important to include in my congrats email or things like that?
So I have throughout time, hey, I need to send them a copy of the newly executed contract. What can I put with it? I do that. Any amendments that are signed, I simply just write an email and say, hey, this is an amendment. These are the repairs agreed upon. They need to be done by this date. Receipts will be provided. Move on. Now, some of the other templates that are used are, and this is different for everyone. So this is not by any means what you
I'm
have
trying
to
to
do.
create I've been trying to think of ways to make templates, but I think sometimes like starting off and trying to figure out what it is that I need in my templates, and I think that's why I saw those.
Yeah. Well, we can get together. We can get together at another time. I can help you with that. You're welcome. Y'all have any questions online?
Is it possible to set a signature with those attachments with brokerage services or?
Yes. So I don't know how to do that, but I asked who's the guy, the tech guy that does it?
That's Stewart.
No. I know there's Lane.
And then Robert.
Well, no, it was, I'll find his name. I'll find it. But basically he does a lot of, like he can upload your contacts into command, things like that. So he actually set that up for me because I didn't know how to do it. So, okay. So on the back, the action plan for next class. See, we're finishing early, guys. You want to prepare for your next class. So some of the things that you're going to need to do, you have a video to watch about negotiating. There's some more scripts to learn. Through this week, you need to do your 10-4, you need to make your contacts. Do y'all know who you're going to be contacting this week?
Just looking at my database.
Yeah.
Going on there.
Okay. Okay. Do y'all have a system that y'all work off of?
Command.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Perfect. What about online? Do y'all know who y'all are going to be calling this week for your
I have a few
LinkedIn?
ideas.
I get my call list on Monday.
Perfect. How far are you through it?
I'm getting it on Monday.
Okay, you're getting it this next Monday.
Yeah.
Good, good. How are y'all determining how you do that?
So we order lists and you can, pick FISBOs or expired or anything like that. So I ordered a FISBO list, and anyways, just it's using Coldfire. It dials different people, and then the first one it picks up, you can chat with them, and it disconnects the other ones and drops them a voicemail.
Perfect. Well, good.
Yeah.
So have that kind of put together for your next class on Monday. Make sure that you bring some numbers to share with the class. Weekends are usually busy, so just track your numbers, track conversations, write down some wins that you have over the weekend and some questions that you may run into, and bring them with you on Monday. What are some of the things that you have taken away from this class? Some of the things that have stuck with you?
The emails.
The emails?
Yeah.
It's taken me a while to get organized and systematic, but that's the one thing I would share with you when you're first starting out, is if you can create a system or look at someone that already has systems in place and allow them to help you create your own or mimic theirs, it goes a long ways. Goes a long ways. So what about online, on Zoom? Y'all have anything that has stuck with you for today?
How to prepare a net sheet so that I have the ability to take it over to my clients and say, hey, here is kind of the baseline understanding for each of the contracts.
Mhm.
That you have full understanding as to what they're looking for.
Exactly. Now, one of the questions that you will need to ask whenever you're doing the net sheet is make sure that you have their estimated payoff, and just remind them this is just an estimate based off of the contract, the offer that we've received. This may change by a little bit, but this is our best net sheet, estimated net sheet that we can give you. Since I have been using that net sheet and for each offer, it's usually not far off. So it's usually pretty close. So the recall and remember for this chapter is we go through and say, everybody knows what a seller's disclosure statement is, correct? Or the 3 options that the seller has to respond to an offer. Yeah. We just talked about the net sheet, what a net sheet is, and what earnest money is, we talked about earlier.
And now for the earnest option, you put it in one check, or you can do 2 separate checks, right? They're both to the title company.
Yes, you can. Okay. Since it is still kind of new, a newer practice, make sure you call the title company and ask them what their policy is. Some of them are putting both into the escrow, both the option and the earnest, and some are calling the sellers or emailing the sellers and saying, hey, I have an option check here for you. Do you want it mailed or do you want it just held here? So if it's a title company that you haven't worked with, just ask them what their policy is, especially if you're representing the buyer. Okay. Okay, so what are y'all's goals for next week?
More leads.
Get more leads? How are you gonna do that?
Houses.
Open houses, do you have one scheduled for this weekend?
I usually do that.
Yeah.
I usually go to MLS, try to find houses near my house,
Mhm.
call different agents,
Good.
ask them if they need any help.
Jump on our Facebook group page and say that you're willing to do one.
Yeah, usually, because I live in McKinney,
Uh-huh.
yeah, in this Facebook page, everyone is in there. Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit hard for me because I'm not familiar with this area.
Mhm. Then you have a good plan. Good. What about you?
One is build more structure.
Uh-huh.
So the whole one of the emails or systems, creating systems, because I'm very much like a checklist kind of person.
Uh-huh.
So I like having that. Also building text messages, just kind of have the process ready templates on my zip forms. That's kind of one of my top goals for next week. And then I'm trying to like talk to my mom's clients, whether that be sending them like little cards or doing phone calls, just letting them know we're here. Also decluttering now.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that'll probably help you get a big weight lifted off your shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay, what about on Zoom? What are some of your goals for this week?
To make sure that my seller does in fact list. I have documentation all over to them. We're going to meet here soon and hopefully everything goes as smoothly as possible so that I can get their house sold and call at least 15 FSBOs and 15 expires.
Oh, that's a good goal to have. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thank you.
Have you've done a listing appointment before, right?
No, well, I mean,
No?
yes, I have. And it was very, very instructional and it was very helpful. So I don't feel nervous in any way, shape, or form. So that when I meet these new people face to face, they have a complete understanding that I am headstrong and more than willing to dodge and weave any kind of a situation that takes place so that we can get the best price possible for them.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, what about some of you other guys? Jacob, Joe, Betty?
Lead gen, just get leads, make appointments.
Okay. And you're the one that gets your list on Monday, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How many calls do you usually make a day?
I don't know. I'm planning on making probably like 20 a day.
Good,
So
good. I'll be interested to hear how it goes.
okay.
Okay. Joe, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What do you got going for next week? What's your goals?
I'm hoping to close on a house next week.
Oh, good. Where is that one?
It's here in Denton. We're still waiting on the appraisal though, so we'll see. But
Well, good,
crossed.
good. I'm
um,
happy for you.
and I need to get some catch up on my database, getting some things documented.
Okay,
But I've gotten a little out of my organization, being busy doing other things.
yep, yep. So we have to remember that when we get busy in contracts, we still have to do our lead gen. Because if we don't, that's what creates that roller coaster that realtors are usually on. So we still have to push to get more in contract. So I have found over the years, it's really important to figure out how many people you need to be working with at all times to keep that going. Betty, are you there? Okay. Okay, guys. Well, if y'all don't have any other questions, I'll let y'all get to your lead gen for today. And please take my phone number. Let me know if y'all have any questions or if you need anything. I'm happy to help y'all with whatever. And I have everybody's email address, and I will email some of this stuff for electronic copies for you guys. Okay?
I'll probably be texting you to see if
Yes.
there's time next week that we can like.
I'm actually leaving town on
Okay.
Sunday. I'll be back on Saturday. Will?
Okay. We can do the week after, that's fine.
Okay, that'd be good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.